Phrasal verbs and stories. Learn English easily. Introduction. Have you ever read a book or watched a movie in English and heard a phrase like give up or look forward to? You know the words, but the whole phrase seems like a little puzzle. Maybe you understood give and up by themselves, but what does give up really mean? These moments show us how tricky English can be, especially with its many phrasal verbs. These are verbs that join with small words like on, off, in, or out to make completely new meanings. They are used everywhere in everyday English, from simple instructions like turn on the light to deeper feelings like look after someone. For a long time, the usual way to learn these was to look at long lists. You might see something like, put up with means to tolerate. It felt a bit like trying to memorize a phone book, didn't it? You might remember a few for a while, but they often felt separate, like lonely words without a home. Learning that way can feel tiring, and sometimes you forget them as quickly as you learn them. You might know what put up with means, but do you truly feel it when a friend says, I just can't put up with this noisy neighbor anymore? It's hard to use words you don't truly understand or feel connected to. But what if there was a much more fun and better way to learn these useful phrases? What if, instead of staring at lists, you could learn phrasal verbs by seeing them used just like you learn your first language? That's exactly what this book is all about. Our main idea is simple. Learning English phrasal verbs is best and most fun when taught through stories and real-life examples rather than just memorizing lists. We call this learning phrasal verbs through context. This means we'll discover the meaning of these verbs by seeing how they are used in real situations, in talks, and in interesting stories. When you meet a phrasal verb in a story, something special happens. Your brain doesn't just see a word, it sees an action, a feeling, or a situation. This makes the meaning stick much better. You understand it naturally without having to force yourself to remember. The story gives you clues, making the meaning clear. It's like watching someone cook a delicious meal instead of just reading the steps. Seeing it done makes it easier to learn and remember. And because you see them used naturally, you'll start to feel sure using them yourself in your own English. Learning becomes an adventure, not a hard job. So, let's say goodbye to those boring lists and get ready to explore the wonderful world of English phrasal verbs through the power of stories. In this book, we will go on this journey together. You'll meet common and useful phrasal verbs, and you'll see them used in interesting short stories and everyday situations. You'll understand their meanings just by reading, and you'll feel your confidence grow with every page. We'll make learning English feel easy and good. Are you ready to unlock the secrets of phrasal verbs and make your English learning path smoother and more enjoyable? Let's dive in and start learning, one story at a time. 1. Why phrasal verbs matter. Imagine you are in a busy cafe. You can hear people talking and laughing. But what if you only knew single words? It would be hard to understand everything, like watching a movie with no sound. Phrasal verbs are special. They make English sound friendly and real. We use them all the time, without even thinking. Think of the word go. It means to move. But when we add another small word, it changes. Go out means to leave your home to have fun, like meeting friends. Go on means to keep doing something, like please go on with your story. Go over means to check something again, like let's go over the plan. See how a small word changes the meaning. This helps us say many different things. Phrasal verbs are important for talking like people really talk. Let's look at the word look. It means to use your eyes. But add a small word, and it means something new. Look up a word means to find its meaning. Look after someone means to take care of them. Look forward to something means you were excited about it. Look into a problem means to check it out. Each of these has a special meaning. If someone says, I need to look up my friend, and you only know look means to see, you might think they are trying to find their friend's face. But if you know look up means to visit, it makes sense. Phrasal verbs add more meaning. They make English more colorful. Phrasal verbs sound natural because we use them every day. Friends talk with them. Families use them. People making plans use them. They are not just for books. They are for when we talk in a relaxed way with people we know. Instead of saying, I will investigate the issue, a friend might say, I'll look into it. Instead of saying, I will postpone our meeting, someone might say, let's put off our meeting. This makes talking easier and more real. If you only use single words, you might sound too formal, like you are reading from a book. Phrasal verbs help you connect with people better. They make it easy to understand each other. This natural way of speaking is important. Think about your own language. You probably use many phrases that are more than one word. Phrasal verbs are a big part of English like that. They let us say big ideas with small word groups. For example, breakdown can mean a car stops working, or a person gets very sad. Turn on is for lights, but turn down can mean to say no to something. These words are flexible and make English interesting. When you use phrasal verbs well, you are learning to speak English like people who grew up speaking it. You start to understand jokes and informal talk. It's like unlocking a new way to understand and be part of the English world. What happens if someone learning English doesn't understand phrasal verbs? It can be funny and sometimes confusing. Imagine someone saying, I need to get over this cold. If you don't know get over means to get better, you might think they are trying to climb over their sickness. Or if a friend says, my phone ran out of battery, and you don't know run out of means to use all of something, you might wonder if the battery escaped from the phone. These mix-ups can make talking awkward. It can also make it hard to understand movies, songs, or instructions. You might miss important things. This can be hard for learners and make them feel like they are missing something. Let's tell a little story. Sarah had learned English for a year. Her new friend Tom invited her to a party. She was happy but a bit worried. Tom called and said, Hey Sarah, I'm throwing a small get-together at my place on Saturday. We're going to have some snacks and play music. Can you make it? Sarah understood most of it, but throwing a get-together sounded strange. Was Tom going to throw things? She imagined him tossing plates. She said, Yes, Tom, I can make it. Later, she talked to her classmate Maria. Sarah asked, Maria, Tom is throwing a get-together. What does he mean? Is he throwing things at the party? Maria laughed. Oh, Sarah! Throwing a get-together just means he is having a party. It doesn't mean he's throwing anything. Sarah felt better. She asked, and what about make it? Does it mean I have to create something? Maria smiled. No, make it here means can you come? Sarah saw how many small phrases she almost misunderstood. If she hadn't asked Maria, she might have gone to the party expecting a wild event where things were being thrown. This showed Sarah how important phrasal verbs are. They have special meanings. If you miss them, it can be funny but also confusing. Learning these common phrases is not just about knowing new words. It's about understanding how people really talk and avoiding confusion. Learning English without phrasal verbs is like trying to learn to swim without going in the water. You can read about it, but you won't learn until you try. Phrasal verbs are like the water of English talk. They give English its personality and help you feel like you belong. When you know and use them, you don't just speak English, you live it. You can say what you mean better, understand others more, and feel more sure of yourself. They help you speak English more naturally and enjoyably. Think about movies and TV. When a character says, "Give it up for our amazing contestant," they don't mean to hand them something. They mean applaud or show your support. When someone says, "I can't put up with this anymore," They don't mean they are holding something up. They mean they can't stand it. These are not hard words. They are the words we use every day to connect and share. They help us tell stories and share feelings. Without them, our talking would be less. It would be less colorful and less like the real English we hear. For people learning English, this can seem hard at first. There are many phrasal verbs and their meanings can seem strange. That's why just memorizing them often doesn't work. It's like trying to learn about friendship by reading a dictionary. You miss the good feelings and shared times. Phrasal verbs are similar. You learn their true meaning and how to use them when you see them used. When you read a story where someone calls off a wedding, you know it means to cancel it. When you see someone setting up a new computer, you know it means getting it ready. This is where context helps. It's not just knowing the word, but knowing how and when to use it. This is where we start our real learning. We've seen why phrasal verbs are so important. They make English sound natural and help us express ourselves. They make conversations flow and help us connect with others. They are everywhere in everyday talk and in media. Understanding them helps you feel confident speaking English. Now that we know how important they are, the fun part is learning the best way to do it. And that, as we will see next, is by using stories in real situations to make learning easy and fun. 2. Learning through stories. Learning English can feel like trying to catch little fish that swim away. You see them in sentences, but it's hard to grab them, especially the tricky word pairs like look up or put off. These word pairs seem to be everywhere, and sometimes their meaning is not clear. Trying to remember them one by one can be hard work, and the meanings often don't stay in your mind. But what if learning these word pairs could be as easy and fun as hearing a good story? That is what we will look at now. Think about how you learned your first language. You did not use a book with rules, right? You heard words used in real life, in talking, and in stories from your parents. You learned what mama meant when you saw your mother, or what sleep meant when you were tired. Your brain learned by seeing and experiencing the words as they were used. This is the main idea of learning these word pairs by seeing them in use. It means understanding them as part of talking, not just as separate grammar rules. This is where stories become very helpful. A story is more than just words. It is a trip. It has people, places, feelings, and things that happen. When these word pairs are part of a story, they have a reason and a meaning that stays with you. Instead of just being a word to remember, a word pair becomes a tool that helps the story move forward. It helps us know what a person is doing, how they feel, or what is happening around them. Let's think about the word pair look up. If you just see it on a list, you might learn it means to search for information. That is right, but it is a bit boring. Now, imagine a person in a story. Let's call her Maya. Maya is in a new city and wants to find a famous old library. She takes out her phone. She says to herself, "I need to look up the address of the Grand Library." Right there, the action of using her phone to find information makes the meaning of look up very clear. You can see Mia's finger touching her screen, her eyes looking for the words. The situation she is in being in a new place and needing information perfectly shows what look up means. You do not need a long explanation. The story shows you. The meaning becomes natural, like understanding a hand movement. Stories also have a great way of connecting with our feelings. When we feel something, we tend to remember it better. Word pairs used in a story can become linked to those feelings, making them much easier to remember. Think about someone who has worked very hard on something, maybe a special cake for a birthday. They have spent hours baking and decorating. But then, just before the party, something goes wrong. Maybe the oven stops working, or they drop the cake. When they see that their hard work is for nothing, they might say, with a sigh, "Our plans have fallen." True. The feeling of being sad, of hopes not coming true, is tied to the word pair fall through. You do not just learn that fall through means to fail, you feel the sadness of failing with the person. This feeling makes the memory much stronger than just remembering a meaning. The word pair becomes part of the person's sadness, making it hard to forget. Another good thing about stories is how they let us see words used again in a way that makes sense. Lists often repeat words in the same way, which can be boring. Stories, however, can use the same word pair in slightly different situations, making its main meaning stronger without being boring. Let's think about setting off. Imagine a story where a young explorer, Leo, is getting ready for a long trip. He packs his bags, says goodbye to his family, and then says, "It's time to set off." The meaning here is clear. He is starting his trip. Later in the story, maybe Leo is at a party. The sky is dark, and people are excited. Suddenly, with a loud noise and bright colors, fireworks begin to explode. Someone might shout, "Wow, they're setting off the fireworks." The main idea of starting or beginning is still there, but the situation is very different. In the first case, Leo is starting a trip. In the second, fireworks are starting their show. By seeing set off used in these two different, but related, moments in the same story, you understand its flexibility and its main meaning of starting something. This kind of learning from seeing words used in different situations is much better for remembering than seeing set off on a list twice with the same meaning. Stories also create pictures in our minds. They show us people and what they do, making them seem real. When a word pair is part of this mental picture, it is easier to remember. Think about the word pair give up. If you read, "The mountain was too high and the climber decided to give up," you can easily picture that climber looking at the tall mountain, feeling tired, and then slowly putting down their equipment, their shoulders dropping. The image of them stopping their effort, of them admitting defeat, is strong. The word pair give up is not just a word, it is part of that picture of losing. You see the climber's actions, how they stand, and the decision to stop. This picture memory is very powerful. It is much easier to remember give up when you can see the image of the climber on the mountain than if you just saw give up equals to stop trying in a chart. So, how does the way a story flows naturally show the meaning of a word pair without needing exact explanations? It does this by showing, not by telling. A story happens step by step. A person has a problem, they react, and their actions lead to something happening. A word pair often describes that reaction or what happens next. If a person is in a hard situation and they back down, the story will show why they backed down, maybe because the other person was shouting, or because it was too dangerous. The story's events give the clues. The things that happen before the word pair and the things that happen after it all work together to show its meaning clearly. We can use certain parts of stories to highlight and teach word pairs well. Talking between people is one strong way. When people talk to each other, they use language naturally. If one person says to another, "Did you run into Sarah at the market?" the meaning of run into to meet by chance becomes clear from the question itself. The person listening understands that they are asking about meeting someone without planning it. The place where the story happens is also important. If a person is described as living in a small, crowded apartment, the meaning of living in to reside in a place is understood from the description of the place. What people do is, of course, very important. If a person is described as picking up a pen that fell, the physical action makes the meaning of pick up obvious. The combination of who is doing what, where, and why, all happening in the story, allows the word pair to show its meaning naturally. Let's try a short story to see this happen. Imagine a person named Sam. Sam is excited because his favorite band is coming to his town. He wants to buy tickets. He quickly goes to his computer. He says, I need to log on and get tickets before they are all sold. The action of using his computer to get to a website makes log on to access a computer system or website clear. He buys the tickets successfully. A few days later, Sam is at the concert. The band is playing his favorite song. He feels very happy. As the concert ends, he hears the main singer say, "Thank you for coming. We hope you put on a great show tonight." That does not sound right. Sam frowns. He knows put on can mean to wear something or to present a show. But the singer is talking to the people watching. Sam realizes the singer said it a little wrong and meant to say we hope you enjoyed the show tonight. Or maybe we hope you had a good time. The story shows us that sometimes, even people who speak the language perfectly might use words a little differently or we might understand them wrongly. But the situation helps us figure it out. Sam understands the singer meant to thank the people for being there and enjoying the show. Later, Sam is walking home from the concert, feeling tired, but happy. He sees his friend, Alex, walking toward him. Alex looks a little sad. Sam asks, "What's wrong, Alex?" Alex sighs and says, "I wanted to go to the concert, but my car broke down on the way, and I missed it." The image of Alex's car stopping and not working is very clear. Broke down means stopped working, usually suddenly. Sam feels bad for Alex. He says, "Oh no, that's too bad. Don't worry, we can catch up soon and I'll tell you all about it." Here, catch up means to talk and share information after a time of not seeing each other or talking. Sam is offering to talk to Alex later to share his concert experience. In these few sentences, we have seen log on, put on, broke down, and catch up. Each word pair's meaning is not just told, but shown through Sam's actions, his thoughts, his friend's situation, and what they say. The way the story unfolds guides us. We understand log on because Sam is using a computer. We understand put on and the small confusion it causes because of the situation of a concert performance and the audience. We understand broke down because of the picture of a car that has stopped working. And we understand catch up because Sam is offering to share his experience with his friend later. This is the special power of learning through stories. It is natural, it is interesting, and it makes the meaning stay with you. Now that we understand how powerful stories are, let's look at some real examples and see how these story methods can be used to learn many common word pairs, making your English learning journey both good and enjoyable. 3. Understanding context. Phrasal verbs can sometimes seem like secret codes, right? You see a verb like look, and then a small word joins it like up. You might think, okay, I know look, and I know up. That must mean looking towards the sky. But then you hear someone say, I need to look up that word in the dictionary. Suddenly, look up does not mean looking towards the sky at all. It means searching for information. This is where the magic of the situation comes in, and it's the real secret to understanding these useful English phrases. Think of stories as a special kind of map. When you are learning a new phrasal verb, it is like being in a new place. If you only have a list of directions like a dictionary definition, it can be confusing. You might have many directions and you do not know which one to follow. But if you have a story, it is like walking through that new place. The story shows you the buildings, the streets, the people, and what they are doing. All these details, the situation, act as your map. They help you figure out exactly where you are and what the phrasal verb means in that moment. Let's see how the words around a phrasal verb and the situation itself give us important clues. Imagine you are reading about a person named Leo. Leo is getting ready for a big job interview. He is a little nervous. He is sitting at his desk and his friend, Maya, calls him. Mia asks Leo, "Are you ready for your interview?" Leo sighs and says, "Almost. I am just trying to figure out what to wear. I have so many shirts and none of them seem right." Now, you might not know figure out very well, but look at what Leo is doing. He is looking at his shirts and he is thinking about which one to choose. He is trying to solve a small problem. What is the best shirt for the interview? Situation. The fact that he is trying to make a decision about his clothes for an important event tells you that figure out here means to solve a problem or to understand something. It is not about drawing a picture, is it? It is about thinking and deciding. The story gives you the hints. This is very different from just seeing figure out on a list with other words. A list might say, figure out, understand, solve, calculate. That is helpful, but it is a bit like having a toolbox with many different tools. You know they are there, but you do not always know which tool to use when. When you see Leo trying to solve his shirt problem, you see the exact moment the figure out tool is needed. You see it in action. The story shows you how the tool is used, and that makes it much easier to remember. Let's take another example. Sarah is planning a surprise birthday party for her brother, Tom. She is talking to her friend Ben on the phone. Sarah whispers, "Okay, Ben, the big day is Saturday. I have told everyone to arrive by 7 p.m. We need to set up the decorations before Tom gets home at 8 p.m. What does set up mean here? Sarah is talking about a party. She needs to get things ready. She is talking about decorations. So set up probably means to arrange or prepare things. It is about making the place ready for the party. Ben is not setting up a table to eat on, or setting up a new computer. He is preparing the party space. The situation, a birthday party, decorations, getting ready for guests, makes the meaning of set up very clear. You understand it means preparing and arranging things for an event. Now, imagine you just saw set up in a list. It might have meanings like set up, establish, arrange, prepare, trick someone. See how there are different meanings. A dictionary is useful, but it can also be a bit overwhelming. When you read about Sarah and Ben planning the party, you do not have to worry about the trick someone. Meaning. The story naturally guides you to the correct meaning. You see the situation, and your brain connects set up with getting the party ready. This is learning through the situation, and it feels much more natural and less like hard work. This leads us to the idea that stories help us go beyond the dictionary. A dictionary gives you the basic building blocks, the individual meanings. But a story shows you how those blocks fit together to build a complete picture. When you learn a phrasal verb in a story, you are not just learning a definition, you are learning how it feels, how it sounds, and how it fits into a real conversation. You learn the purpose of the phrasal verb in that moment. When Sarah says they need to set up decorations, you understand that it is an action that needs to be done before the party starts. You understand the urgency. You understand the goal. This deeper understanding is what makes phrasal verbs truly useful. You do not just know what set up means, you know when and why to use it. The wonderful thing about figuring out phrasal verbs from stories is the boost it gives to your confidence. Remember Leo trying to figure out his shirt? When you read that, and you understood what he meant, you probably felt a little spark of success. You thought, I got it. I understood that new phrase without even looking it up. That feeling is incredibly powerful. It tells your brain, see? You can do this. Learning English is not impossible. Compare that to spending hours memorizing lists of phrasal verbs and their meanings. You might remember some, but you might also forget others. And even if you remember them, you might not be sure when to use them. It can feel like a lot of effort for not much reward. It can be frustrating, and that frustration can make you want to give up. But when you learn through stories, Each phrasal verb you understand feels like a small victory. It is like finding a treasure. You are not just collecting words. You are gaining the ability to understand and communicate more effectively. Each aha moment builds on the last, creating a positive cycle of learning. You become more curious, more willing to try new sentences, and more confident in your English speaking and listening skills. Let's look at a situation where the meaning of a phrasal verb changes completely depending on the situation. Consider the phrasal verb give up. In one story, imagine a young runner, Alex, is training for a marathon. He is running a very long distance and his legs are tired. He feels like he cannot run another step. His coach runs up to him and shouts, "Alex, don't give up now. You are almost there." Here, give up means to stop trying, to quit. Alex is tempted to stop running, but his coach is encouraging him to keep going. The situation of a race, the physical struggle, and the coach's encouragement all point to the meaning of quitting. But now, let's imagine a different story. A woman named Mrs. Davis is trying to bake a cake for the first time. She follows the recipe, but the cake comes out flat and burnt. She looks at it sadly and says to her husband, "I tried my best, but this recipe is just too difficult for me. I think I will give up baking for now." In this second story, give up has a similar meaning of stopping, but it is about stopping an activity because it is too hard or not successful. She is not quitting the race. She is deciding to stop trying to bake that particular cake or maybe baking altogether for a while. The situation here is about a cooking attempt that did not go well. It is about admitting defeat in a specific task. Now, what if we take give up and put it in a completely different situation? Imagine a group of friends playing a card game. One friend, Maria, has a terrible hand of cards. She looks at her cards and says, "Oh no, I cannot possibly win with these. I give up." In this situation, give up means to surrender in the game, to admit you cannot win. It is a specific action within a game. See how the meaning is slightly different in each case, but the situation makes it clear. In the race, stop trying to run. In baking, stop trying to bake. In the card game, stop playing the game because you cannot win. The main idea of stopping or quitting is there, but the thing that is being stopped is different. The story tells you what the person is stopping. If you just saw give up on a list, you might not realize how many specific situations it can apply to. The stories show you the small differences. They show you the color and life of the language. When you can successfully guess the meaning of a phrasal verb like give up by reading a story, it is a fantastic feeling. You have used your understanding of the situation, the character's feelings, and the overall plot to figure out the meaning. This is a powerful skill. It means you are not just memorizing words. You are understanding English. You are building a bridge from confusion to clarity. This builds your confidence greatly. You start to believe that you can handle new words and phrases because you have a strategy. Look at the situation. This ability to guess meaning from the situation is a superpower for language learners. It means you can read more books, watch more movies, and have more conversations without constantly stopping to look up every new word. It makes the learning process smoother and much more enjoyable. It changes phrasal verbs from a source of worry into tools that help you understand and express yourself better. You realize that learning English is not just about memorizing. It is about understanding how words work together in real life. Now that we understand why the situation is so important, let's dive into some actual stories and see how this works in practice. We will start by looking at how common phrasal verbs are used in everyday conversations, where the meaning is often very clear because the situation itself tells us everything we need to know. We will see how these little word combinations paint a clear picture and make communication richer and more exact. 4. Overcoming memorization challenges. Learning English can feel like climbing a very tall mountain sometimes, can't it? When we get to the part about phrasal verbs, those small word pairs like look up or give in, it often feels like we've hit a wall. We're told to learn them. The most common way is to grab a long list, a pen, and a notebook. We stare at the words, trying to push them into our brains. We write them down again and again. We test ourselves. Then, a few days later, when we need that exact phrasal verb in a real talk, our minds go blank. It's frustrating, isn't it? It makes us feel like we're not good enough, or that learning English is just too hard. This feeling of frustration is very common. Think about it. Why is it so hard to remember all these phrasal verbs? It's not because we're not trying hard enough. It's often because the method itself isn't the best way for our brains to learn and remember things, especially language. When we look at a list, say, put off, to postpone, put on, to wear, put out, to extinguish, we see 3 different meanings, all starting with the same verb, put. Our brains try to understand it, but without any real connection. It's just a mix of words and meanings. We become like sponges trying to soak up water, but the water just slips through our fingers. We might be able to say, yes, I remember seeing put off on the list, but can we use it? Naturally? Can we feel the meaning? Probably not. This is called list fatigue, and it's a big reason why many learners struggle. The problem with memorizing lists is that it treats phrasal verbs like simple words that have one fixed meaning. But phrasal verbs are often more than that. They are like little puzzles where the verb and the small word work together to create a brand new meaning, a meaning that you can't always guess just by looking at the words separately. For example, look means to direct your eyes, but look up can mean to search for information in a book or online, or it can mean to admire someone. The meaning changes completely depending on the small word that follows. This is why just memorizing the words and their meanings is like trying to learn how to ride a bike. By reading a book about it, you can know all the theory, but you won't know how to balance or pedal until you actually get on the bike and try. Phrasal verbs need to be experienced, not just listed. This is where stories come in, and where our way of learning phrasal verbs really shines. Stories are not just for fun, they are powerful tools for learning. When we read a story, our minds become active. We connect with the people in the story, we feel their feelings, we follow their journeys. And when phrasal verbs appear in a story, they are not just words on a page. They are actions, decisions, feelings, and events. Imagine a person in a story who is trying to achieve a difficult goal. They face many problems. At one point, they feel like they can't go on. They might give up. This single phrase, give up, is now linked to the person's struggle, their feeling of sadness, and maybe their decision to stop trying. It's no longer just a meaning on a list. It's part of a human experience. Later, when you see give up again, your mind will naturally remember that person and their situation. The meaning, to stop trying, becomes clear and unforgettable because it's tied to a memory, a feeling, and a story. The story acts as a strong memory hook, catching the phrasal verb and holding it safely in your mind. This is the main idea of learning phrasal verbs through context. We are not just memorizing words, we are placing them in meaningful situations. When a person in a story has to put off an important meeting because something unexpected happens, you don't just learn that put off means to postpone. You understand why they had to postpone it. You see the event that caused the delay. You might even feel a little of their sadness or relief. This connection makes the meaning much clearer and the word much easier to remember. It moves us from simply seeing a word to truly understanding it and, more importantly, feeling how it should be used. This way helps us move from just recognizing a word to actively using it. When you only memorize lists, you might be able to find a phrasal verb if you see it. You might even be able to match it to its meaning. But using it yourself? That's a different challenge. You need to know when to use it, how to use it, and what it sounds like in a sentence. Stories provide this crucial how and when. By seeing people use phrasal verbs in different situations, you learn the natural flow of the language. You see the context that makes a particular phrasal verb the right choice. It's like watching a skilled cook make a dish. You learn not just the ingredients but the technique, the timing, and the art. Instead of trying to force ourselves to memorize strict rules, learning through stories helps us build a natural sense for phrasal verbs. People who speak English as their first language don't usually learn by memorizing lists of phrasal verbs. They grow up hearing them used in talks, in books, on TV. They absorb the meanings through constant exposure and context. Stories allow us to copy this natural learning process. We start to develop a feeling for which phrasal verb fits a particular situation, even if we can't immediately explain the exact rule. It feels more natural, more like how we learned our first language. Let me tell you about my own struggle with this. When I was first learning English, I remember a teacher giving us a list of verbs with get in them. Get up, get on, get off, get along, get over. I spent hours trying to memorize them. I wrote them down. I made cards. I even tried saying them out loud in funny voices to make them stick. For a while, I could say them all. But then, in a real talk, when my friend asked, "How did you get over your cold?" I just froze. Get over? What did that mean? I knew get and I knew over separately, but together? It was a mystery. I felt so embarrassed. I wanted to say, "Oh, it took a long time, but I'm better now," but the words wouldn't come. I had memorized the words, but I hadn't learned the meaning in a way that I could use. It wasn't until I started reading novels, really getting into stories, that things began to change. I remember reading about a person who was very sad because they had lost their job. The story said it took her a long time to get over the disappointment. Suddenly, get over made sense. It wasn't just to go over, it was about moving past a difficult feeling or situation. It was about healing or recovering. The image of the person feeling sad and then slowly feeling better was so strong. It was a picture in my mind, and the phrase get over was a part of that picture. Then, a few chapters later, the same person was talking about her old car. She said, "I finally had to get rid of it." Get rid of? Again, a new phrasal verb. But because I had already experienced get over in a story, I was more open to the idea that these word combinations had unique meanings. I pictured her looking at the old, broken-down car, and the phrase get rid of it felt like the action of throwing it away or selling it because it was no longer useful. It was about removing something from your possession. The story gave me the context. It showed me the situation where this phrase naturally belonged. This is the magic. Instead of feeling like I was cramming facts, I was experiencing language. I was seeing how people used words to express their lives, their feelings, their problems. The phrasal verbs became tools that people used to navigate their world. And by following their journeys, I was learning to use those tools myself. It was no longer a chore, it was an adventure. I started to look forward to finding new phrasal verbs in the stories because I knew they would unlock a deeper understanding. I wasn't just collecting meanings, I was building a library of real-life language. Think about the difference between seeing turned down in a list, meaning to refuse, and reading a story where a person is offered a dream job but has to turn it down because it would mean leaving their family. The second option paints a picture. You see the person's difficult choice, the hard decision they have to make. The phrase turned down is no longer an idea. It's the act of saying no to something good, often with a hint of sadness or regret. This emotional connection is what makes the memory stick. It's the difference between a black and white photograph and a vivid, full-color movie. This is why the old way of memorizing lists is so not effective for phrasal verbs. Phrasal verbs are not just words. They are often small stories themselves, full of meaning from their context. When you take them out, you remove that context, leaving you with dry, hard-to-remember meanings. It's like taking a single brick out of a beautiful wall. The brick itself might be fine, but it loses its purpose and its connection to the whole structure. The beauty of learning through stories is that it helps us build that structure, piece by piece, in a way that feels natural and interesting. It changes the hard task of memorizing hundreds of phrasal verbs into a series of enjoyable discoveries. Each story we read becomes a classroom, and the people in them become our guides. They show us how to figure out problems, how to work out solutions, and how to carry on when things get tough. So, when you find yourself staring at a long list of phrasal verbs, feeling that familiar sense of being overwhelmed, remember this: there's a better way. There's a way that doesn't involve endless repeating and forgotten meanings. There's a way that uses the power of stories to make learning stick, to make it meaningful, and to make it fun. The challenge of memorization is not a sign that you can't learn English. It's a sign that you haven't yet found the right path. And that path, as we'll see, is made of stories. Now that we understand why memorizing lists doesn't work well and how stories offer a strong alternative, let's dive into the very first story that will help us unlock a group of common phrasal verbs, proving that learning can indeed be an adventure. Conclusion: you have reached the end of this book. You have learned a lot about phrasal verbs in English. Learning them can be fun, like an adventure. Phrasal verbs can seem tricky because their meaning changes with the words around them. That's why we use stories. Our way of teaching is to learn phrasal verbs by seeing them in action. Think of the words around a phrasal verb as its setting. This setting is the situation, the talk, the feelings, or the actions that help you understand what the phrasal verb truly means. This is much better than just looking at a list of words and trying to remember them. Stories help us learn well. Think about how you learned your first language. You didn't memorize lists of words. You heard them used in everyday life, in stories, and in games. Phrasal verbs learned in stories become part of how you naturally understand English. When you see a phrasal verb in a story, you connect it to a character's feelings, an event, or an action. This helps the meaning stay in your mind better than just memorizing a definition. Our brains are made to remember stories. The plot, the characters, and the feelings in a story help us remember things. When a phrasal verb is part of a story, it's easier to remember later. Stories don't just tell you what a phrasal verb means, they show you how to use it. You see how words fit together naturally. Instead of looking at long lists and feeling confused, you have been reading interesting stories. This makes learning easier and more fun. Remember how we learned to give up with a character who kept trying, or look forward to when someone was excited about a trip. These were not just meanings. They were moments in a story. You now have a strong way to learn. You don't need to be scared of new phrasal verbs anymore. You have the way to understand them. Your job now is to keep finding stories. Read books, watch movies, listen to English podcasts, and follow English speakers on social media. The more you hear and read real English, the more phrasal verbs you will see used in the right way. When you find a phrasal verb you don't know, don't just look it up. Stop and think. Look at the sentence. What is happening? Who is talking? How do they feel? This will give you a clue to the meaning. Don't be afraid to try using new phrasal verbs yourself. Making mistakes is part of learning. The more you practice, the more confident you will feel. You could even keep a notebook for phrasal verb stories. When you find an interesting phrasal verb in a story, write it down with a short note about the situation or a sentence from the story. This makes your learning personal. Learning English, especially phrasal verbs, can be easy and fun when you have the right attitude and tools. And you have just shown yourself that this is true. You have taken a big step in learning English. You have learned a method that will help you for a long time. The world of English is big and exciting, and now you know how to understand phrasal verbs better, you can explore it more. Thank you for learning with us. We wish you the best in your learning. Keep reading, keep listening, keep exploring, and most importantly, keep enjoying the stories that English has to share.